on HBCUs. My name is Mark Barnes. I am an associate professor of geography at Morgan State University. We have a bit of ground to cover today. We have about, I guess, an hour and a half or so. And I'm here. I'm here to provide some insight into HBCUs and sort of the legacy of leadership, certainly that they have with regards to environmental justice, but also to talk about some contemporary activities as I've seen them in coming on board with the EPA, Environmental Justice and Thriving Communities Technical Assistance Centers. And it's been a really great journey thus far in learning a great deal about the work of HBCUs, particularly here at Morgan State. And so I'll do a presentation about that work that we're doing to do three things, and that's build capacity, community, and then also certainly strength. And so hopefully I can illuminate some of those ideas through the presentation. But what I wish to do before I begin is to first thank Dr. Jacoby Wilson and his staff at the center for all the great work that they do. I also would like to thank the folks at the National Wildlife Federation who work diligently to keep at least me on task, and I'm thankful for that. But most of all, I am thankful for all of the individuals who are doing such amazing and incredible work throughout the Mid-Atlantic region and also beyond its borders to alleviate the stressors and pressures of environmental exposures that disproportionately impact Black and Brown people, for sure, around the globe, if you will. As I mentioned, I am a geographer, so I perhaps see the world slightly different than many or most. I think, or I know actually, all of this work is place-based. And so given that sort of idea, I want to draw your attention first to a summit, EJ Summit, that's taking place here at Morgan State on November the 15th through the 16th. It's part of Geography Awareness Week, and we celebrate Geography Awareness Week on an annual basis. Even during COVID, we did. So it's a nonstop show. And then this year, we have the great privilege and honor of hosting a summit here on campus that invites all undergraduates, graduate students, faculty, staff, and community partners to Morgan State to exchange information, share ideas, build capacity, and that's another C word right there, but also advance the movement, to advance the movement in unity. The work that we're doing here at Morgan State is to provide sort of support for that, and I'll show you that a little bit later. Okay, so let me first say, in listening to the keynote remarks earlier today, Martin Luther King, the great late Dr. Martin Luther King was attributed as being sort of the grandfather of the environmental justice movement. But I think we can go actually a little further back um, to think about the work of a Thurgood Marshall, who was a young, aspiring attorney at Howard Law School under the tutelage of Charles Hamilton Houston, who was the dean of that time. As many know, uh, Chief Justice Marshall, or who became Chief Justice Marshall, was a graduate of Lincoln University and then subsequently a graduate of the law school at Howard University. But what many may not know, and this is presented or highlighted in the film documentary titled Tell Them We Are Rising, the history of Black colleges and universities. In that documentary film, it shows a young Thurgood Marshall and a team of lawyers going to the Deep South to document um, inequitable environmental conditions within the education system there. All they did was take but a typewriter and cameras to document what was certainly an environmental injustice. And their work on the ground, research, led to the case, or a number of cases actually, that struck down previous laws that promoted racial segregation here in America. And as you all know, that landmark decision in 1954, Brown versus the Board of Education, Topeka, Kansas, changed the landscape of American public education. Although we still have challenges and a way to go to ensure certainly equal access and quality of educational systems, structures, even. The precedent was certainly set way back when. And I think that's the spirit, I know that's the spirit in which this work is unfolding. So let me get to it and pull up our presentation. And it's a short one, y'all. It's not a long presentation. I know how folks, when it comes to academics, they're like, oh no, it's going to be, very long, sort of talking head thing. But I really don't like to talk too much. Certainly I don't. And in fact, I do have a class later on this evening, which is a 3-hour class. So I don't have much in the tank for today. Hopefully, though, I'll be slightly impactful. I just wanted to also introduce as well my colleagues in crime, as I would say, Julia Tai and Franca Nwoko, who are pursuing graduate degrees in civil engineering and also higher education management here at Morgan State University. And they have assisted and supported the work to gather, collect the data, preliminary data that I'm about to share with you all, that we hope will tell a compelling story of the contributions of faculty, staff, and also students in sort of this environmental justice sphere. So that being stated, I'm just going to get right into it. But let me give you some background. we began this journey about a year or so ago to visualize, to begin to visualize the work that's being done on the ground through research, teaching, and service, which are the three pillars of higher education. And that work, we believe, was happening, but folks really don't know where, when, as well as how. And so we set on a journey to begin the process of inventorying first our faculty here at the university to get an understanding of what they do, like real basic, what they do and where they do what they do relating to research, teaching, and service. Now, in this presentation, because even though we have at this moment a small sample of participants in the survey or inventory, I'm only going to focus on a third of those three pillars, right? And so I'm going to focus on the research because it's the research that helps to drive the change or the changes that we want to see, and also vice versa. And we believe that there's much that can be done with a visualization of what faculty are doing in the humanities, even in the arts, behavioral and social sciences, and also STEM fields, right? A lot of times we compartmentalize these different categories or groupings of disciplines and fields, and that actually lessens or dampens the impact. And so you can imagine when you have perhaps teams, a diverse team of scholars, of advocates, of engineers, architects, and so forth, you can imagine what might take place or what can take place in many neighborhood communities, both city and suburban, also in coastal territories, and then also certainly in rural areas. And so using Morgan State as what we would consider an alpha site, one, to sharpen our instruments and our tools for replication throughout the Mid-Atlantic region, HBCUs in Pennsylvania, like Lincoln, and also Cheyney University, certainly Delaware State, our other three institutions here in Maryland, Coppin, Bowie, and University of Maryland Eastern Shore. And then, of course, UDC, University District of Columbia, and Howard University as well. And of course, all of the Virginia schools, Norfolk State, Howard, and I don't want to slight anyone, but you know where I'm getting at. So we hope to have actually within our 5-year time period, sort of a composite sketch that includes all of those institutions and their work, past and present, and perhaps even future work towards making sort of these investments in alleviating water toxicity, soil toxicity, poor air quality, poor infrastructure, energy inequalities, and so on and so forth. And that summit actually serves as a mobilizing space to make those connections. And so in terms of our presentation, we wanted to think about the folks in the study. So that's what this presentation emphasizes or highlights. It's those who responded to a survey at the end of the spring 2023 term. We did another push just before school opened at our Faculty Institute. So we did an in-person push. The first push was electronic via email. And then now we're just doing a third push, which is not included in this presentation. But I want to talk about three things, and I'll do that for each of these slides. So departmental fittings, and what you see here in this diagram is, of course, the representation. But it's important to know in terms of response that we must think about the composition of our departments, of our disciplines on these campuses. Some departments have just a singular primary focus or discipline, whereas others are more diverse. For example, I'm in what's called history, geography, and museum studies. So you have all these different perspectives that are represented. Also, what's important to know in terms of fitting is the size of the department. And so I'm actually no longer a standalone geographer, so we now have two. One just came on board this fall. But for the last decade, I've been sort of the single geographer here on campus. Some departments are as large as perhaps 20, whereas some may be as few as 3 or 4 persons. I think that's important when thinking about this notion of capacity building, and also certainly getting to the idea of having or establishing those connections that we can leverage the talents of our faculty members on these campuses. And so as I'm speaking not only about Morgan State University, but I'm also speaking in the collective sense, if you will. Okay, biased reputations. Well, what does that mean? Well, we would have expected to see a greater proportion of folks from STEM fields, because what's in the name, right? So you think about environment, and you go directly to perhaps biology, if you will, or even chemistry as well. And so we have that bias, and many people do. And so even hearing the word environment, a lot of times folks may not identify that, especially the idea of environmental justice. In fact, when we put out the survey, we didn't even use the term or the phrase environmental justice. We just wanted to know what folks were doing related to environment research, teaching, and service, and so as to not create a bias. So you have that. And so the expectation is that we thought we would have seen more of folks from STEM fields, yet we do see some unusual suspects. And I think this is incredibly important to give consideration to when you think about disciplines or fields like in the humanities, like philosophy. We have actually here on campus a faculty person who does environmental ethics. And the work that he's doing is incredible in enabling a deeper, more critical understanding of concepts or ideas like stewardship, ownership, if you will, of land. What does that mean? Who gets to own land? Who decides who gets to own land, right? And all of that. So, these unusual suspects can be real game changers in this environmental justice movement. And so I wanted to draw your attention to that. Next slide. From here to eternity. I think this is important too, across the board, regardless of the institution type, its size, whether it's public or private, whether it's 1,000 or less than 1,000 in terms of HBCU, the HBCU world, to 10,000. Morgan State just reached that status as 10,000 this semester with the incoming class. But there are three things that I wanted to talk about real briefly. So the notion of publish or perish. Environmental justice work really requires a lot of work, a lot of field work, a lot of community time, and the like. And so, or time in the communities to assist, to support efforts, research efforts, education efforts. It takes a lot of time. However, we in the higher education space do have some constraints. And that whole idea of publish or perish is that, you know, you do research, you submit it to a journal, peer review, it's accepted, and that's sort of a credit to that research pillar. And so that's an incredible consideration to have, particularly for HBCUs, when you think about some of the challenges and some constraints. For example, I give you one and then I'll move on to the next point. Many carry what is called the 4-4 load, which means that basically a good probably 65% of your time is spent teaching. In some class loads, you might have 35 persons. So if you do the math, I think that comes up to about 140 or so, maybe 145 people a semester. And that's a challenge to balance the teaching load with the research and also the service, because you get credit for that. And that's how we sort of, if you will, move up in the ranks. And so that's an important consideration. Serve and perish. So the thing is that, you know, once you do sort of cement yourself, if you will, with tenure, we do let, there's not a faculty person here on this campus that I've met, and I've met mostly everyone because I'm a kind of a gregarious guy. The idea of serving and perish. So a good number of my colleagues are doing really incredible work in communities, neighborhoods like Northeast Towson, just on the outskirts of the city of Baltimore, and also in southern neighborhoods in Baltimore, like Curtis Bay, Cherry Hill, and others. And they're doing amazing work, urban farming, I mean, incredible. However, you know, it does come at a cost. So decisions need to be made about how to balance everything. And then kind of almost sort of mention this idea of, you know, the teaching part. So you can teach and perish in perpetuity. What does that mean? You know, living a life of the mind, especially in a college or university setting. You know, you teach, and it's not a job that's always given thanks. Like folks, it's a thankless job, if you will, a lot of times. But all of this in terms of status from here to eternity, if you will, there's a flip side to that. The flip side is that having the productivity of research does position faculty, staff, students, but also more importantly, community partners. Having that knowledge base is incredibly important to help address what are often or seemingly intractable issues. And so having sort of the knowledge here, and this is what we're attempting to do, is bring all of that knowledge together. The serving part as well is that we get to build our understanding, our knowledge base on those interactions between faculty and students who may be doing service learning work, and then also community partners, community-based organizations. That allows for, again, that experiential learning that can possibly be replicated or transferred, if you will, elsewhere, right? And so as we do the work and we record our successes and oftentimes too failures, because everything doesn't come out perfectly, but also that third part, to teach. And I think that's where HBCUs, have a niche, if you will, right? To be able to make culturally relevant connections through the research, through the teaching, through the service that enables forward progress. So I think that's incredibly important, and I'll move to the next slide. Sorry, that's going backwards, not forward. Sports cars, utility vehicles, and luxury sedans. I think that's incredibly important. It's connected to appointment status, and I'll just briefly, quickly actually move through here so we can get to the meat. So what do I mean by that? Well, if you think about things, I like to think about things in threes, a third, and a third. Those sports cars are those sort of early career faculty persons. And we're getting a huge influx at this moment at Morgan State as we expand unprecedented growth in our facilities, as well as in our curriculum, our programming. And so with those sports cars, those early career individuals who are just coming on board, may have been here for a few years, about a year, maybe a year to 4 years, incredibly energized and enthusiastic about doing this kind of work. So we have to touch base with that population. Utility vehicles are like folks like myself right now. I just finished up a decade here at Morgan State. I'm proven. I've taken my hits and everything. I can travel on rough terrain if necessary, and so those individuals provide another outlook and insight into sort of the past, right? How they've gotten to where they've gotten to. And I've worked with a number of individuals here on campus and established relationships, which are incredibly essential to this work. And knowing who to not only identify, but also to select to partner here on campus. And my work extends beyond geography. I work with architects, I work with planners, I work with social workers, I work with everybody here at the university. Even folks in English have been a part of the work and have been very, what I would say, helpful in making me to be the person that I am here today. But then you have those luxury sedans, right? They've been along, it's a smooth ride. And I think that's where that wisdom also comes into play that we have here at the universities. Those folks who have been here at the institution for over 15 years or more and have seen significant change in building infrastructure and then also administrative infrastructure as well. And so they can help guide us through some of the tough challenges that we often face when partnering with outside groups. And when I talk about some of the challenges, I mean those things around administrative support, uh, grant making, and the like. We need those individuals to help sort of smooth, if you will, the roadway for us to do greater and better work in collaboration, in partnership with community-based organizations. Huh. So what we found in our preliminary results, again, I want to stress that, we found some general research landscapes, if you will, fantasy islands and beaches, cosmopolitan treasures, and bucolic dreams. What do I mean by any of that? Well, in thinking about fantasy islands and beaches, I'm going to think a little bit more broadly, but I do want to start with our Patuxent Environmental and Aquatic Research Laboratory, otherwise known as the Pearl here at Morgan State. There are similar laboratories or institutes and centers throughout the Mid-Atlantic region at HBCUs. Uh, and so I want to think about sort of their work with ecosystem health, species habitat restoration, and the like, and even water quality testing in the Chesapeake Bay. And so uh, each of our institutions, our HBCUs, have those sort of assets that enable to, again, alleviate through research, scientific research, to help alleviate, draw attention to environmental change that's happening, and then also their impacts. And they're done kind of almost as I would like to think in terms of sort of on these sort of islands and beaches, like we don't know, that's not something that is widely communicated or publicized to larger audiences. But we believe that in doing so, that will help increase our partnerships and the like. So, for example, just recently, our Pearl received what's called a Maryland Sea Grant to not just do sort of aquaculture type work, but to work in collaboration with faculty here on campus, because the Pearl is 80 miles south in St. Leonard, 80 miles south of the campus. And they brought their show north, and the Maryland Sea Grant is to assist communities, Southern Baltimore or South Baltimore neighborhoods, residents in gaining access to blue space. Why? Well, as I mentioned earlier, that whole where infrastructure and then toxic exposures from nearby manufacturing activities reduce or impact their health. And so also there's a justice issues around access and water as well, of which many do not enjoy at this moment in time. And so the idea is to fulfill sort of these fantasies, if you will, in conjunction, in support of with community-based organizations, residents. So there's that. And then we have our cosmopolitan treasures that I look at, for example, like Morgan, of course, Howard, UDC, Virginia Union, with our that are in urban situations. They are urban anchors, research institutions. And we have many centers, institutes that are doing work. However, all of this work is spread um, and unknown, right? Where are the locations of where are the exact locations of the work that's being done to address maternity health um, issues, right? Where's that work exactly being done? Because there might be other institutions, other faculty who are doing similar work elsewhere. We just don't know. Uh, and I think or my perspective is that the environmental justice movement has always been about visualization. It's always been about, seeing or helping others see what is invisible, whether we're talking about toxic gas, polluted air in school buildings, in homes, and so on and so forth. It's incredibly important to visualize that with the technologies that we have, and I'm about to get to that in a second. Lastly, bucolic dreams, the idea of fracking, right? We heard that most recently. But there are other issues relating to um, still coal mining production, or coal production, if you will, in West Virginia. And so, we do have sort of these dreams. We do have these institutions like West Virginia State and even perhaps Bluefield College that are exposed. And I can tell you this, I would say perhaps 85 to 90% of our HBCUs here in the Mid-Atlantic region uh, and even elsewhere have exposures themselves. Virginia Union certainly rests or is located in the Heat Island there in Richmond, Virginia. Uh, West Virginia, Bluefield College, nearby, again, mining activity. Uh, we have also our more coastal institutions like Delaware State, in addition to Hampton, Howard University, uh, Norfolk State, that face certain threats from sea level rise that's unfolding right now, and the like. So, the research um, landscape um, is really spread, across sort of those three areas: rural, suburban, if you will, and then also coastal landscapes. So I had some data. We got some data again from the um, the survey, and again, it's important to visualize this. Currently, we're wrapping up some work on just mapping sort of the landscape, the geospatial landscape here at Morgan State. Several colleagues, Dr. Linda Lubier, who's in economics, and also Brian Filler, who's in our Earl S. Richardson Library. We are looking at and have looked at sort of, the geospatial activity on campus across the disciplines. So this particular map just gives us a sense of the representation only of those in the study. This does not suggest that, for example, the bottom left corner here, which is the College of Liberal Arts, the James H. Gilliam Jr. College of Liberal Arts, is well represented. And that's because there's some bias, possibly some bias, because I'm located in the CLA, or the College of Liberal Arts. So this does not suggest that For example, engineering, you can't really see it up here, but it would be up here, which is the School of Architecture and Planning, um, does not have individuals. In fact, both those schools, the School of Engineering and then also the School of Architecture and Planning, have remarkable faculty who are doing work, the likes of Dr. Samia Kirkner, whose work, again, in South Baltimore and also West Baltimore neighborhoods is unparalleled or unmatched. You have the work of James Hunter, who's a civil engineer who's doing incredible work around flood modeling in both West and also East Baltimore neighborhoods to, again, address that flood issue. So we do have extremely capable, talented, remarkable faculty who are doing environmental sort of justice work here at Morgan State. And we know that there are many, many more beyond our campus footprint. So this, again, is just showing you the darker colors is those, again, that have the highest representation in the study, whereas the lighter ones, as you go down the gradients, they have fewer representation. And then my last slide, like I said, I didn't want to do this for too long in terms of presentation. Like I said, I got to keep my voice for class this evening from 5:30 to 8:15. This kind of just gives us a county-wide shot, if you will. And the question is, how many other faculty or staff, right, from other institutions here in the Mid-Atlantic region have concentrated work, research work, in these counties, right? And so once we, like I said earlier, once we get all of this data, right, because that's going to drive the narrative, and that's what's going to help us better coordinate convenings like the summit, perhaps coordinate, again, across disciplines within institutions, and then also across institutions, HBCU institutions, and their community partners, grant support for the amazing work that is being done, building stronger capacity, building or creating more culturally relevant programs, teaching, interventions, policy making, even as well. I think this effort will put us all in a position to further advance the principles of the environmental justice movement. Now, what I don't have, and you probably say, well, Mark, where's the neighborhoods? Well, we have some challenges with that, right? And so a lot of times faculty don't think that way. And even though we asked the question about which neighborhood, the names, we got, some responses. So we have to still do our due diligence to pull that information, gather that information from faculty who responded, and also attempt to assist others as we continue to provide that information. Because I think, at least for here, Baltimore, that has over 200 neighborhoods, and we have faculty and our students and staff persons, especially when you throw in the Morgan Mile neighborhoods, there's a lot of activity that's happening, and it's a lot of activity that's not being seen. And that's not to say that the activity has no impact. We just don't know. And we'd like to know, and we should know, because knowing will enable a much more effective, a much more effective environmental justice movement supported, assisted by historically Black colleges and universities. So that's my presentation. I don't think I have another slide. Nope, that's it. I invite questions. Oh, it's just me. But that's it. So the time is 3:48. And I hope you got those who are here, out there rather, somewhere in the ether. I hope you got something out of the presentation. We'll keep you updated. Again, our summit is planned for November 15th through the 16th. Hope you can join us. I'll put the link back up, or the photo back up rather, so that you can at least grab the link here through the QR code, so that you can register. Registration is free, and there is a travel stipend for those in need, and you'll see more information about that when you select the QR code. Thank you.